ask you something. When you picture someone turning 100 years old, what comes to mind? Maybe a fragile figure in a wheelchair, struggling to hear, see, or move. Maybe someone bedridden, barely able to enjoy daily life. Now, imagine this. A 103-year-old woman in Okinawa tending her garden every morning, bending down with ease to pluck vegetables, then joining her friends for tea and laughter in the afternoon. Or a 101-year-old man cycling to the market, carrying groceries home by himself. This isn't a fantasy. This is real life in Japan, a country that has become the world's epicenter of longevity. In fact, Japan has more than 92,000 people over the age of 100, according to government data from 2025. And here's the even more fascinating part. Many of these centenarians are not just alive, they are thriving. So what's going on here? Why does Japan, and especially Okinawa, produce so many people who not only reach 100, but live those years in surprisingly good health? And what can we learn from them to apply in our own lives? That's exactly what we're going to explore in this video. We'll dig into the cultural habits, the dietary secrets, the scientific research, and the personal stories that reveal why Japan leads the world in healthy aging. And by the end, you'll walk away with practical lessons, 5 powerful takeaways that you can start applying to your own daily life, no matter where you live. Setting the stage, the reality of longevity in Japan. First, let's look at the numbers because they really tell the story. In 1963, Japan had just 153 centenarians. By 1998, that number had jumped to 10,000. Fast forward to today, and it's nearly 100,000. That's exponential growth. And what's more remarkable is that the majority of them are women, about 88%. Compare that to most countries in the West, where reaching 100 is rare and often tied to heavy medical intervention or nursing care. In Japan, many centenarians live independently, cook their own meals, and actively participate in community life. It's not just about the length of life, it's about the quality of those years. That's why scientists, journalists, and even Netflix documentaries have traveled to Okinawa to uncover what locals call the secrets of longevity. The Okinawan example. Let's zero in on Okinawa, a subtropical island in southern Japan, often referred to as the land of immortals. Okinawa has one of the highest concentrations of centenarians in the world. Researchers discovered that Okinawans have some of the lowest rates of heart disease, cancer, and dementia on the planet. And here's the kicker. This isn't because of expensive healthcare or cutting-edge technology or miracle pills. It comes down to lifestyle. For example, a typical Okinawan breakfast might include miso soup, sweet potatoes, a side of pickled vegetables, and green tea. Lunch could be tofu, stir-fried greens, and a small portion of fish. Dinner? A hot pot of vegetables, mushrooms, seaweed, and maybe some pork, but only as a flavor, not the main dish. It's light, nutrient-dense, and incredibly balanced, and portion size is just as important as what they eat. Hara Hachi Bu, the 80% rule. One of the most fascinating practices in Okinawa is something called Hara Hachi Bu, which translates to eat until you are 80% full. Think about that. In the West, we often eat until we can't take another bite, but Okinawans stop while they still feel just a little bit hungry. This simple habit reduces overeating, lowers the risk of obesity, and helps maintain stable blood sugar levels. Dr. Craig Wilcox, a longevity researcher who has spent decades studying Okinawa, once said, "The Okinawans eat fewer calories but more nutrients. They're not starving themselves. They're nourishing themselves intelligently." And there's wisdom in that. Modern science shows that mild caloric restriction can slow aging processes, reduce inflammation, and extend lifespan in animals. The Okinawans have been practicing this for centuries without needing a lab to tell them it works. Real story: the 104-year-old gardener. To make this more tangible, let me share a real story. Meet Shigeko, a 104-year-old woman from Okinawa who was featured in an interview a few years ago. Every morning, she goes out to her small garden to tend to her vegetables. She eats mostly what she grows: spinach, carrots, bitter melon, and herbs. She laughs easily, has a strong voice, and insists that the key to her longevity is eating in moderation and laughing with friends every day. What struck me most about her story wasn't just her diet, it was her attitude. She radiates joy, even in her old age. And that brings us to another secret of Japanese longevity: their mindset and social bonds. Ikigai, the reason for being. There's a word in Japanese that doesn't quite translate into English, but it carries profound meaning. Ikigai means a reason for being, or a reason to wake up in the morning. For some, it's their family. For others, it's a hobby, like painting, fishing, or gardening. For many Okinawan elders, their ikigai is their community, the sense that they are still needed, still contributing, even at 90 or 100. One 97-year-old fisherman once said in an interview, "I fish every morning, not because I need to eat the fish, but because my neighbors look forward to it. If I stop, they'll miss it." That sense of purpose keeps him going physically and emotionally. Modern psychology backs this up. Studies show that people with a strong sense of purpose live longer, healthier lives. Purpose lowers stress, improves sleep, and even strengthens the immune system. So far, we've uncovered some fascinating insights. Japan's centenarian population is exploding. Okinawans live longer thanks to simple but powerful lifestyle habits. Hara Hachi Bu, the 80% rule, is a cornerstone of their health. And Ikigai, a sense of purpose, keeps them alive in ways no medicine can replicate. But we're just scratching the surface. Diet and mindset are key, yes, but there are more pieces to this puzzle. In the next section, we'll explore the role of physical activity, community networks like Moai, and even the science of gut microbiomes that researchers now believe may be the hidden link to Japanese longevity. Stick with me, because Part 2 will connect the dots between tradition and modern science in ways that might completely change how you think about aging. When we left off, we talked about the Okinawan diet, the practice of Hara Hachi Bu, and the concept of Ikigai. But diet and mindset alone don't explain the whole story. If you really want to understand why Japan has so many centenarians, people living past 100, you have to look at lifestyle, social structures, and even what science is uncovering about the human body at a microscopic level. The power of daily movement. One of the biggest misconceptions in the West is that exercise has to be intense, structured, and gym-based. We think of exercise as sweating on a treadmill, lifting weights, or pushing through a 60-minute workout class. But for the Japanese, especially in Okinawa, exercise looks very different. It's woven naturally into daily life. Elders in their 80s and 90s walk everywhere. They garden, they sweep their yards, they climb stairs. Even something as simple as sitting on the floor and standing back up, which they do every day, keeps their muscles and joints active. In fact, researchers have pointed out that the very act of living in traditional Japanese homes, where people sit on tatromi mats and sleep on futons, forces them to use their bodies in ways that maintain flexibility and strength well into old age. And then there's Radio Taiso, a simple group exercise routine that has been broadcast on Japanese radio and TV every morning since the 1920s. Millions of Japanese, from school children to centenarians, participate in this routine of stretches and light movements. It's not about breaking records, it's about consistency. Real story: the 99-year-old farmer. Take the example of Mr. Tanaka, a 99-year-old farmer from a rural part of Japan. Every morning, he still wakes up at 6 a.m., heads to his small rice field, and tends to his crops. He doesn't do it for money anymore. He does it because it keeps him moving, gives him a rhythm, and connects him to the land. When asked about his secret, he laughed and said, "I move every day. If I stop moving, I stop living." This idea that motion is life is something Japanese culture embraces naturally. And it may explain why they have some of the lowest rates of frailty and falls among the elderly compared to other nations. Moai, the power of social networks. Now let's talk about something that often gets overlooked in discussions of health: community. In Okinawa, there's a tradition called Moai. It's basically a lifelong social network, a group of friends who meet regularly to support each other, share food, talk, and even provide financial help if needed. Imagine having 5 or 6 close friends who are there for you no matter what, from childhood all the way into your 90s. That's a moai. Studies show that social isolation is as deadly as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Loneliness increases the risk of heart disease, dementia, and even early death. But in Okinawa, loneliness is rare. Elders are surrounded by community, laughter, and connection. One researcher who visited Okinawa said, "When you walk into a moai gathering, you see elders in their 90s laughing so hard they cry. You see them teasing each other, sharing stories, and singing songs. It's medicine without a prescription." Spirituality and stress management. Another layer to this puzzle is how the Japanese manage stress. Modern life is stressful everywhere, and Japan is no exception. But culturally, there are tools in place that help people cope better. For example, practices like forest bathing, shinrin-yoku, spending time quietly in nature, are deeply ingrained. Scientific studies now confirm that walking through forests lowers cortisol, the stress hormone, reduces blood pressure, and boosts immune function. And inflammation, as you may know, is at the root of most chronic diseases: heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes. So having a microbiome that keeps inflammation in check is like having an internal anti-aging system. It's worth noting that this microbiome advantage may come from their diet. The seaweed, miso, fermented soy, and pickled vegetables that are staples of Japanese cuisine. Real story: the centenarian who loves pickles. Let's take the story of Haru, a 102-year-old woman in Osaka. She eats pickled daikon radish every single day. When asked why, she simply shrugged and said, "My mother did it, and her mother did it." Science now shows that fermented foods like hers are packed with probiotics that nourish the gut microbiome. Haru may not know the word microbiome, but her daily habit is giving her body exactly what it needs to stay resilient. So at this point, we've seen how lifestyle and community habits shape Japanese longevity. Daily, natural movement instead of forced exercise, moai networks that keep loneliness at bay, spiritual and cultural practices that reduce stress, and a unique gut microbiome supported by traditional foods. But now let's ask a deeper question. What does all this mean for us? Most of us don't live in Okinawa. We don't have moai networks built into our culture. We don't eat seaweed every day. In the final part of this video, we're going to break it all down into simple, practical lessons. I'll show you 5 habits from Japanese longevity that you can start applying in your own life, no matter where you live, no matter your age. And trust me, these aren't gimmicks. They're small, sustainable shifts that can change the way you age. So far, we've uncovered the fascinating reasons why Japan, and especially Okinawa, is home to so many centenarians. We've seen the role of diet, purpose, daily movement, social networks, stress management, and even gut bacteria. But here's the truth. Most of us don't live in Okinawa. We don't have the same foods, the same traditions, or the same cultural rituals. So the real question becomes, how do we take these insights and apply them in our own lives? Because living longer isn't just about adding years to your life, it's about adding life to your years. Lesson 1. Eat smart, not just less. One of the most powerful lessons from Japan is the way they approach food. It's not about chasing the latest diet fad or cutting out entire food groups. It's about balance, moderation, and nutrient density. Remember Hara Hachi Bu, the practice of eating until you're 80% full? That simple habit alone can reduce overeating and protect against obesity-related diseases. So what can you do at home? Start by slowing down your meals. Eat mindfully and pay attention to when your body feels satisfied instead of stuffed. Swap processed snacks for whole foods. Think vegetables, legumes, fish, and whole grains. Experiment with fermented foods like kimchi, sauerkraut, or yogurt to nourish your gut microbiome. It's not about copying the Japanese diet perfectly. It's about borrowing the principles and weaving them into your lifestyle. Lesson 2. Move naturally every day. You don't have to join a gym or run marathons to age well. What Japanese elders show us is that movement is most powerful when it's consistent and integrated into daily life. Think of it this way. Sitting on the floor to play with your grandchildren, tending a small garden, or even taking short walks throughout the day can be just as valuable as a workout routine. Here's a simple challenge. Set a timer and get up once every hour to stretch, walk, or move around. Over weeks and months, these small movements compound into better balance, stronger muscles, and improved health. Remember Mr. Tanaka, the 99-year-old farmer who said, "If I stop moving, I stop living." That's the spirit to carry with you. Lesson 3. Cultivate purpose. Find your Ikigai. What gets you out of bed in the morning? That's not just a philosophical question, it's a health question. In Okinawa, elders often live with a deep sense of Ikigai, a reason for being. Whether it's tending a garden, teaching younger generations, or creating art, having purpose gives them energy and resilience. You don't have to discover your life's grand mission overnight. Start small. What hobby lights you up? Who depends on you, even in small ways? What gives you joy, regardless of recognition or money? Write it down. Remind yourself of it daily. Because when you have purpose, stress becomes easier to manage and every day feels worth living. Lesson 4. Build your community. Loneliness is a modern epidemic. Studies show it's as dangerous as smoking or obesity. But the Okinawan tradition of Moai proves that community is medicine. So here's a challenge. Who are your 5 people? The ones you could call anytime. The ones who truly know you. If you don't have them yet, start building. Join a local club, reconnect with old friends, or create a weekly dinner ritual with neighbors. Remember, longevity isn't just about diet or exercise. It's also about laughter, companionship, and the simple joy of being seen and valued. Real story. The tea ritual. Let me share one last story. There's a group of women in Okinawa, all in their late 90s, who meet every afternoon for tea. They've been doing it for decades. They sit together, drink green tea, snack on sweet potatoes, and chat about everything from family to old memories. When asked about the secret to their longevity, one woman smiled and said, "This, meeting every day.
drinking tea together, laughing. That's the medicine. No expensive supplements, no miracle cures, just consistent, joyful rituals. The bigger picture. So, what does all of this teach us? That longevity isn't about chasing a single magic solution. It's not about one pill, one superfood, or one breakthrough discovery. It's about small, sustainable habits, repeated daily, over decades, that create a foundation for health and joy. The Japanese, especially in Okinawa, remind us that aging doesn't have to mean decline. It can mean vibrancy, connection, and wisdom if we live in alignment with principles that nourish body, mind, and spirit. Here's the lesson I want you to walk away with. You don't need to live in Japan to apply these secrets. You can start right now, wherever you are. Eat a little lighter, move a little more, laugh with your friends, find your purpose. Let go of what you can't control. Longevity isn't about living forever. It's about living fully with health, joy, and meaning for as long as you're here. And maybe, just maybe, if we learn from the wisdom of the Japanese centenarians, we'll find ourselves not just adding years to our lives, but adding life to our years.